Before we start, we have to show off some 3D printing stuff because this podcast is brought to you by our 3D printing lab, AG3D. We bring ideas into reality, and we brought our own ideas into reality originally with our James Webb Space Telescope coaster, which is available in our Etsy store for $12. You can pick that up and support the podcast and have something cool around the office, wherever you are. It's a great gift as well, and it helps support us. And then one of our first real resin prints, on our resin 3D printers, which we have in our basement, we have two types. We have the one that is like this, where I think most people have seen in kind of like labs at school, or really these are the ones that are most used in people's houses, where they use a piece of plastic filament and heat up through a nozzle and then make layer by layer. The resin 3D printing, which we've talked about before, if you want to learn more about it, follow us at AG3D Printing on Instagram to learn more about that. But we're basically using UV light to cure a photopolymer resin layer by layer, and you're pulling the object out of a vat of resin, which is pretty wild. So we made our own version of the James Webb Space Telescope model. That was the idea here is for it to still be a really cool looking model, but also to be more 3D printable. I think the biggest complaint I can have, and granted, I am, again, no means complaining, just offering feedback. Most of the 3D models that are available by NASA actually might be too complicated. A lot of the stuff that the 3D model library that NASA has available, a lot of it is like exact models of the spacecraft, the rockets, whatever it might be. I mean, there's a space launch complex model, which is I've tried to work through that 3D model, and if you're trying to 3D print that model, good luck. The problem is at that scale, if you take something that big with this engineering that it has, it's got like sheet metal, right? Like it's very, very thin structures and very, very complicated structures. So when you scale that down to a size that you could actually print and hold in your hand, a lot of the stuff is too thin to actually be printed, and it's not. It's a great thing to have, but for 3D printing and making it yourself, that model's not really there, and it's something we could talk about for a really long time, of just this idea of a lot of people who go into engineering and do 3D design, CAD design. A lot of the things you learn as you're in school and then going into the workforce is that there's a very big difference between designing anything and then designing something that can be made consistently and at a good cost. Those are two different things. There's being an artist, and then there's designing for manufacturing. And so this model was the first attempt at designing a James Webb Space Telescope model that is for the actual manufacturing method. So with this, obviously we had some defects, right? Some of the sun shield sheets kind of like a little floppy and wobbly, but that's mostly because we printed it like this, and I'm actually amazed they held together. They're just long sheets, but when you cure, it warps a little bit, especially if it's thin. The UV light can move things around, and if it's not fully supported, it kind of just does its thing as it goes in and out of the vat, going up and down as the UV light cures it. So that's a long way of saying we are going to have this model available in our Etsy store. If you guys would like one for your desk, at home, for whatever, we're going to finish up this model and make it really crisp and clean. But this one becomes our example to showcase for the podcast, right? So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And I think we're going to make that model available somewhere online. Not sure quite yet where, like maybe it'll be a 3D model on our Etsy store, but really excited about sharing that. And if anyone at NASA does want to put the model up on the NASA website, that's definitely something I would consider doing, because I think that's a proper model. It's based off of, for the most part, the actual blueprint for the design. I pulled up a few of those and used the side view and the top view. It's not exactly correct, but it's something that's going to bring inspiration, and for schools, right, especially being able to have that model to download, to print and then showcase and do what we do here, right? Like this model is going to help us explain the science. The same thing can happen in schools and other places where you're, and even at home, right? So That was a lot of fun. It was a really cool experience to dive into. We got our James Webb Space Telescope model done in time on a new technology that I'm still very, very green on. But we were able to learn enough things that made us successful. And we painted it, and it was great. We did a time lapse. We'll put it up here. But the artistic process and just the ability to be so creative on the show is really a blessing, and I'm really, really happy that I get to share this stuff with you and that I get to do this, right? Like, as nervous as I might get before every time we record this podcast or whatever, doing these kinds of things and then experiencing it with you as well is like awesome. So I love doing this. We're gonna keep doing a lot of this stuff.